will you let us go if we bang each other and you get a watch?
Welcome to the Rewatchers on the pod. You're here with me, Tyler Harris, and
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
Boys Night. And do you know what we watched for Boys Night? No Country for Old Men. If you haven't watched it, schedule a boys' night for yourself. Watch No Country for Old Men. Here's everything that happens in case you haven't seen it, so you won't be behind on any of our scintillating discussion. Tommy Lee Jones has depression. Lord Farquaad pulls over an airhead after an off-the-cuff murder. Thanos Brolin sorts out a drug deal and kills a dog for good measure. Farquaad cannot be bothered with Southern hospitality, so he does what his therapist told him to do before making any brash decisions. That being the flipping of the coin. Tommy Lee Jones wants milk with his slice of case. Oh, yeah, okay, I see. Thanos checks in and invests in some air conditioning. Woody Harrelson is in it. Thanos and Farquaad exchange lead and shed some LBs. Thanos takes a trip down south, and I don't mean in no sexual exploratory way. Woody Harrelson gets some sugar. Norma Jean's mom knows 0 people in El Paso. Beer leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to getting your ass shot, and the desert stands in. Norma Jean can't make heads or tails of it all. Farquaad hits his funny bone. Tommy Lee Jones is too old to be happy. I think I might be too. I think I might have gotten there.
Dude, you're not even Tommy Lee Jones level yet.
I know. Well, who is? I mean, Tommy Lee Jones.
If you accept it now, though,
Dude, Tommy Lee Jones.
setting yourself up for success.
If I accept it now, do I get to push it? Like, I might actually make it come all the way back around. So, like, right before I die, just have 3 golden years. And then
No.
I fall off the face of the earth.
I was almost happy.
Well, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on
Good
it?
movie. Yeah.
No, we're done.
Okay, cool.
I mean, the person that hadn't seen this before is not here tonight. So
That's true.
timing-wise, that didn't work out
she
too
watch
well.
it?
Yeah, we watched it together.
Did she give you any? Can you?
So we haven't had like super in-depth discussions about it yet. Like I've asked, it's come up a couple times, but basically like, and I totally get where Gwen is coming from on this, but it's like, so I'm still thinking about No Country for Old Men, and then I'll say, do you have any thoughts? And it'd be like, I'm just thinking about it, which I get, because that's kind of how I've been since I watched it for the first time like 2 years ago. So it's just one of those movies where like, you just have to sit with it, and you're not going to find like the answers that you want even after like looking stuff up that other people think too, I think.
Well, I think like this was maybe one of the first things I watched where I was like, yeah, there's no like good resolution. Like nothing feels good at the end of this movie. Like I don't feel settled. I don't feel like it's ended. It's just and yeah, I mean I think I've seen several things now that do that. I mean, we watched Twin Peaks on this fucking podcast, which that show does this. And like just the whole idea that that's a valid choice, and in some like I'm glad this movie ends this way now. First time I watched it, I was like, but no.
Yeah. Gwen did say that something that she's been sort of like enjoying more lately is just enjoying a story for the story's sake and not having to like come away with something to take from it necessarily, but just enjoying a good story. And I think this movie is one of those that you can definitely just enjoy the story for what it is. Mm-hmm. But obviously like it doesn't sit well with you doing it that way, I think, because there's so, like you said, there's the way that everything ends, there is no end really to any of it, and it just, you don't know what to think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going clear to me during all of this. Like, since we now watched 3 in a row of Coen Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've always realized this, but I think it's hit me a little bit more about how purposeful and once again, maybe I'm projecting because that's kind of where I'm at, but the nihilism, it all feels very purposeful, more so than I feel like I thought in the past, of just kind of that, nothing matters, like, and that seems to be a common thread throughout all of their stuff. And I don't know where I heard or saw this, and I can't recall. I do remember someone saying that this movie is about the silence of God. And that's all I know. Like, I didn't look into it more. I didn't read or whatever, or ask any questions. It was probably like an article somewhere, but I thought about that this time watching, because it's the first time like seeing that, and I can definitely see it. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is the interesting part of that, because he isn't really necessary for the main plot thread, but is it his brother that he's talking to at the end? That's the vibe I got.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
and he seems to try, like, not necessarily like in a selfish or arrogant way, but kind of making it about him and his experience, and like someday I thought God would come into my life, and just hasn't happened. And it's just this old guy who's seeing all this shit, and like, he honestly doesn't do a whole lot after they get to the trailer park. Like, right. They get to the trailer park, you think you're like, this guy's got it, he's gonna solve it super quick, and then he just sits around and doesn't do anything and complains about it, and like is reading the paper. He's like, reads that ridiculous story. He's like, have you ever heard such a fucking thing? And then he's like, the world fucking sucks. It should be better because it was made for me. Like, and I'm like, I feel that way too when I go to movies and there's other people in line, and I'm like, what the fuck?
I especially feel that way when I've gone out of my way to purchase reserved seats that have a buffer zone, and that buffer zone is encroached for no reason.
Yeah, or like maybe you accidentally bought the wrong showing for Star Trek, and
oh yeah.
I felt so stupid asking these people, like, you're in my seat, and they're like, we're like trying to figure out forever. The movie has started, we're blocking, and they're like, this was for yesterday. Fuck. I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah, we have more. That doesn't look familiar.
But yeah, no, I think that just that not mattering thing, and this guy who wants that in his life somehow, and his particular mention of God, I could see how someone would interpret it that way. I personally like get more out of it just with that continued thread of just that nihilism, and how, I mean, the movie's called No Country for Old Men, and just how, I don't know, people romanticize the past, but it's always been fucked up, but everyone feels like, oh, woe is me, as they get older. I mean, I think everyone's guilty of it a bit. I've been guilty of it a bit. I mean, Gen Z's fashion sense is bullshit, but then I think about myself, and I'm like, what's my problem? Why am I saying these things? And it's the same thing we did but then our parents were like, fucking millennials and their fashion. So I don't know. That's my kind of like takeaway from the movie. Not specifically with the fashion sense, but
okay, yeah.
Just the nihilism of like, the bullshit doesn't matter and you're not special. And that's, I don't know.
I thought we were about to go on to the No Country for Old Men, the Coen Brothers fashion treatise. No, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think, I think this movie, like, I think this movie does that so well, and I think that it's one of those things where, like, I think if you were to tell someone the point of this movie is that nothing matters and everyone's fucked, they're gonna be like, why the fuck would I watch that then? And it's like, that's a valid reaction. But like, I do think like, like you were saying, that's such a purposeful choice amidst like incredible like technical ability, and obviously the script is fucking just really good. based on a novel which I have not read. I've read a couple of Cormac McCarthy's other books, but I've never read No Country for Old Men. I don't know why, but yeah, I think that like there are just scenes in this that you could just pull out and analyze forever, and just the dynamics of power and all of that in every scene is so fascinating and interesting. And honestly, this might be the movie that made me love Josh Brolin. I think this was like the first thing, other than the Goonies, which I mean, who doesn't like the Brols and Goonies? But yeah, I think this is maybe the first thing that I was like, man, yeah, Josh Brolin should be in everything. He should be Timothy Chalamet.
Josh Brolin should be. Yeah, the most alike actors ever. I mean, I think Hollywood thought the same thing after No Country for Old Men,
Yeah,
because
that's true.
they started putting Josh Brolin in everything.
Yeah. But yeah, are there any like scenes in particular that you guys gravitate towards, or moments in this movie that stick with you? Other than the ending, I mean, we've talked about the ending. I mean,
yeah,
there's a
so
really
many.
poignant and interesting end. But
Do you have one, Justin?
I'm just like things that I would pick out. It goes with the theme of what we've already been talking about. It's like I don't really know why they're significant, other than like just looking at them individually amongst the entire movie, they stand out a bit. But like the scene where Farquaad is interrogating the convenience store gas station guy. I don't know. I don't remember if I looked up who that guy is. I think he's been in other movies playing some similar character, maybe not. I don't know. But just this
Hollywood's gas station
right?
attendant.
Yeah, the juxtaposition between those two characters and the conversation that they're having is just fantastic. The stakes that are involved that we as the audience are aware of, and the gas station owner slowly kind of becomes aware of throughout the conversation, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe he that whole thing ends and he just thinks that guy that came in is super weird. But like the whole time, we as the audience are on edge because we think he's going to get his head bashed in with the piston gun or whatever it is. So that scene stands out to me. The scene towards the end of the movie where Tommy Lee Jones goes back to the motel where Josh Brolin's character dies after everything's done, the crime scene tape is up, and he walks through, and like there's that tension. You're led to believe that what is the guy's actual name? Not Farquaad.
Anton Chigurh.
Anton, yeah. You're led to believe that Anton is like behind the door watching him come in, and then Tommy Lee Jones goes in there. He's not there. So and there's like this confusion of like, well, what's going on? Like, why am I seeing him like looking at him out the door through like this reflection or whatever? What's happening there? Yeah. So that scene is really interesting. With like the cut, you can tell that Anton got the money. Because he found it in the vents or whatever. I don't know. That scene, I don't know why that one sticks out to me. Maybe because it's just so confusing.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about that scene too, just because there's something about the way that tension is built in that scene, and it's kind of like this movie, that tension's never officially released.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like it builds, and then they just kind of like at some point they cut to something else, and it's like it leaves you with this feeling of just like unresolved things, again, which we've talked about this movie does. But yeah, I think it's like really masterfully paced and edited too, in a way that's just, I don't know, it's so good. I that for some reason that the motel in this movie is like a location that is like burned into my mind, and I don't know, there's something about it, but I don't know what it is.
Is that the last time we see Tommy Lee Jones? Is that his last scene?
No, he has the final scene of the movie.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is like,
duh, that's right.
Oh man, I love it's not even like cinematically like huge. It's just a reverse shot of the same camera position, but his speech, and that speech is honestly I think the best evidence for that take of the silence of God being a big part of the movie is because he talks about his dream that he has and how it's his dad leading him through the desert who's dead and how cold it is, and he's like trying to start a fire but he can't, and like he's like, and then I wake up and it's like, yeah, that symbolism there of just like, I believe he says something about like his dad kind of being distant and not really communicating with him in that dream or something like that.
Yeah.
And just kind of that faith he's putting in and that fire not starting and like, just, I don't know, that to me is the dad being symbolic of God and it not really working out for him at the end, you know, and his kind of realizing at the end of his life, maybe that, you know, that's it. And that's why he's so broken up by that dream. I think that's a scene that definitely sticks out to me. I think that the motel scene's interesting too. And it's a thing you see multiple times, and you kind of brought up the tension that's just never, you know, we never get closure on a lot of things. That the last shot of Josh Brolin is not a close up of his face. He's never worn that outfit in the entire movie. So it's kind of hard for a second to know if that's even him. But everyone kind of fails in this movie. Like every single character is like their own failed story or hero's journey and it happens, all of them unceremoniously. Josh Brolin gets killed off screen. What is it? Is it Norma Jean? She gets killed off screen. Her fucking mother fucks it up and like gives away the location of everything. And it's not Anton who gets him.
Right.
Anton doesn't get his prey. It's the drug dealers who aren't even in the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like that's fascinating to me, and why I kind of I don't know, it's kind of manipulative and blue ballsy a bit, but like it works really well and it leaves you uncomfortable throughout the whole thing. And then with Tommy Lee Jones' speech at the end, the scene you brought up with the gas station, I really like that scene by itself, but also because it's only the second scene Anton's in, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the very introduction scene of him is great because we know everything we need to know about this guy from that first scene where he just kills that guard and like damages himself just to kill this guy, and then just goes, cleans himself up, and it's like, I got more killing to do.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's like that. The thing that I always think about in that scene is like you hearing about like animals who get caught in traps who like chew their legs off to escape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. And like I remember when I saw this, like I don't know why that was fresh in my mind when I saw this movie. It's not like I'm like a trap expert, but I just remember like thinking about that and being like, I don't
He's
know.
He's gonna bite his hands off, isn't he?
you see him in the back, Javier Bardem's
He's been sharpening his teeth this whole time. Anyways, but like that totally, like I remember having such a visceral reaction to that because of like what you were just saying, like that whole like, oh, he'll fuck himself up, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
I do like the little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it humanness, or like after he kills that guy, he's laying there and he lets out this like sigh where he kind of like, you hear a little bit of shaking in there too, like just that small bit right there where like he's clearly like jacked on adrenaline at that moment. Which adds just like this really interesting piece to his character, because we think of him as just like this cold, like thoughtless, emotionless killer, but he's still like there's something there.
Right.
Like Woody Harrelson's character talks about how like he's the most principled one among everybody, or something like that, or like his morals make sense or something like that, which is really fucked up. But yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's a take. I thought about it a little bit, but like, I'm sure there's a take somewhere that his character Sugar is like metaphorically some sort of force in this world of just, he's always out there. And like at the end, he fucking, his arm, bones sticking through his arm. He just like puts it on a sling. You see him walk off in the distance, and there's no doubt that's like, he's fucking alive and he's still fucking killing people. It reminds me of actually in Twin Peaks of Bob, like,
oh sure,
like that take of just Bob being the evil that men do in the world, and I feel like there could be something there with Anton of just being that, because we don't learn a lot about him. Like, you can assume that he was in the war with Woody Harrelson and was a psych and learned how to kill in Nam or something. I don't know, but I think the fact that we don't know a lot about him, other than that he's just a really weird principled killer,
Yeah.
is
Oh
interesting.
man, I wish he was a principal killer.
Write that down.
Principal killer. No, but I think this movie too, like, we've talked about kind of these themes of like this nihilism, or maybe this, like, you know, the fragility of life that is just here and gone in a second, and there may not be any reason for it. And like, there are themes like that present in Fargo, obviously. But I think it's interesting, the tone of like Fargo, which has like genuinely humorous moments, like as dark as that comedy gets sometimes, like sometimes I look at No Country for Old Men and it's like, is this just the darkest that comedy could get? Where it's not even necessarily, you know what I mean? Could you still call this like dark comedy? Like if you were just above, like if you had evolved just past your humanity into whatever's next, would you look at this and be like, oh, these humans are fucking hilarious. I love it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, could you like nail this onto just the end of the spectrum of comedy, of at least the Coen brothers like spectrum of comedy, because that is like such a tool. That is a tool they use in, I mean, almost every other movie. I mean, there are movies that are less, like Inside Llewyn Davis is far less, but there's still a moment where a woman holds up a cat and says, "Where's its penis, Llewyn?" which is objectively hilarious. And so, you know, there's stuff like that I think. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of other Coen Brothers movies that are this humorless, I guess. And I don't know if I can think of one. Miller's Crossing, I'm thinking of as maybe like something that's a little more like straight, but it's like, it's a gangster movie. So it's like, it's got kind of this fun weight to it anyways, you know?
There might be maybe a couple of the vignettes from
Buster
Ballad of
Scruggs.
Buster
Sure,
Scruggs,
okay, yeah,
but
yeah.
that, like, those are just little pieces of the whole, though.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember laughing a lot less in that than in Fargo. So
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I mean, Serious Man, Burn After Reading, all have like moments that I think are like really fucking hilarious. But yeah, I wonder if maybe Macbeth will be that comes out in December will be the closest comedically that we had
December?
that they have made. Yeah, Christmas Day, dog.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Anyways,
that was coming out so soon. I thought that was a ways off.
Yeah, it's coming soon. Lots of shit coming out in December. They're really packing a lot of stuff in.
yeah, I'm already behind.
Yeah.
Of the 3 movies I've needed to see, I've only seen one.
Oh, well, I can't. Okay, let's see. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited for recommendations. But yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, this movie really is just fucking incredible. I don't know. I don't have a whole
The
lot.
cinematography is really good in this. I mean, there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot to say, I think, but I mean, I'm pretty sure in film class they showed us that shot of the reveal of the drug deal where he's walking
Oh, yeah.
over. That was great. Yeah. I mean, they always have good shots, even though they're not like Deakins flashy with their stuff, but it's always very solid and very good.
Yeah.
And like, I think we talked a little about it, but just the pacing of each scene is incredible.
Well, and that's one of those things. Like, I feel like, especially with the Coen brothers, like, I think a lot of times when we talk about pacing in film, what it comes down to is editing and direction.
Yeah.
And I think with the Coen brothers, it's something that is obviously present there, but it starts with the script. Like, their scripts are written in a way to pace that way, because we've talked about there are movies that they've written that other people have directed that just feel wonky for some reason. I think it's because they're missing like that. They're not translating that DNA from the script into that other stuff. And I think that this movie is like a perfect example of that. Even just that scene, the gas station scene, I think is so dependent on that dialogue, and like, I don't know, it's just it's amazing. I really love it.
You know when people have you ever met one of these weirdos who just love the shit out of Bruce Springsteen?
Oh
And,
yeah,
The way that,
I call them Springer boys.
oh, I was going with Steen heads, but
I'm a steamroller, no doubt about it. I'm going to Jersey this summer, making the pilgrimage.
anyway, the way these fuckers talk about Bruce Springsteen as if he's the only American musician ever, and just like the heart and soul of the country and music. It's the way I feel about the Coen brothers. Of just like, man, they're fucking good. Like, and just
I wish other Americans made movies.
like just transcendent. Like no one's consistently just putting out stuff that's just it feels so effortless.
Yeah.
Whereas like I love the shit out of Quentin Tarantino, and a lot of it seems to come naturally to him, but it feels like he's really pushing himself a lot of times. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Whereas the Coen brothers, I don't think I've ever seen a Coen brothers movie like that was not the best, you know? I mean, I haven't seen all their work still, all their older stuff, but like anything new I've seen of theirs, I've been like, that might not be my like absolute favorite one, but just solid filmmaking, like really solid, and writing, just great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool.
I'm curious, what year did Oh Brother Where Art Thou come out?
I want to say 2004. Let me look it up.
Was there a movie in between that and this? I'm sure there was that they did. I don't.
I'm trying to remember. Fargo,
Is that
Lebowski would have been before.
Is that the next one after Oh Brother Where Art Thou? It was No Country for Old Men.
That's the only one. Oh, Intolerable Cruelty, maybe.
Oh, no. We don't talk of intolerable cruelty.
I've not seen it, but my mom rented it once, and I was learning later that it was a Coen Brothers film. I'm like, I wonder how that viewing went. Yeah. Did they do Lady Killers? Is that theirs too?
They did, yeah.
Which is also, I've heard, not their
Which
best.
also is one we do not speak of.
So maybe I'm wrong. My statement
there
before might be.
So, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, The Man Who Wasn't There, which is really great, and then Intolerable Cruelty, and The Lady Killers, and then No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
So.
Man, they're busy.
So they had a brief slump.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy. Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, Hudsucker Proxy, Fargo, Big Lebowski, Oh Brother Where Art Thou. That's a decade. That's a decade of movies that they made. It's fucking insane. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Having those titles, and those are consistently people's favorite movies.
Yeah. Man, it's really amazing. Well, any kind of closing thoughts?
No, this is way fucking up the flow, but I just remembered that scene where he's in the hotel, Anton's finally catches up with him, and then he gets shot. Anton's following the blood, then it switches, and then he's following his blood. And just the way, like what you said before, the editing. And I just wanted to say that scene's dope, and that's all I have.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, cool. I mean, now that we've talked about it, you probably don't need to watch it, but I don't know. Like, if you've got time, you might as well watch No Country for Old Men. Great. Should we go to recommendations?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, if you want to talk to us about anything that we've talked about today or anything, just email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com. Follow us at Rewatchers, follow us on Twitter or Instagram at RewatchersPod. We're going to be back in just a couple minutes and talk about some other shit. Bye. Welcome back to the recommendation section of the podcast where we talk about other stuff that we've been reading, watching, playing, all that good stuff. Tyler, what do you have to recommend for us?
I'm sure I did a lot more than this, but I didn't write them all down because it's been forever. I won't talk about this a lot, but Way of the House Husband has new episodes, so if you dig any of that shit from my last time I recommended it, they got a new batch of episodes,
Nice.
and they're good, and it's stupid, I love it.
Has the animation changed? Does it seem like
No.
we have more money? Okay, good. I'm kind of glad. I was hoping that was the answer.
I do have an anti, though. They made like a live-action companion to it. Have you seen that?
No.
So on Netflix, there's The Ingenuity of the House Husband, I believe it's called. It's a live-action thing, and it's just instructional videos on how to clean your house. But in like the most like unintuitive ways, like old ancient ways that are like way too long, like sharpening your knives with like a fucking stone over the sink instead of getting a fucking sharpener like a normal person. But anyway, yeah, I started watching that. I was like, this just doesn't do it for me. It doesn't have the Yakuza twist to it. So anyway, taking a trip over to Korea. While everyone else was watching fucking Squid Game, which I still haven't seen, I watched a piece of Korean cinema called The Wailing. Has anyone seen The Wailing?
No.
Please watch The Wailing so I can talk about it.
Okay.
Because I'm still trying to decide if this movie's good, but at the same time being absolutely enamored with it and loving it. It's just there's some things in it that are really loose ends that are not fully explained, and I mean I think it's intentional, but I've tried to look up people on the internet explaining it to me who are smarter than me, and I discovered that no one is smarter than me because no one has an explanation for this shit. The people who do, I was able to poke holes in their things. So I was like, what does it all mean? And did they do a good job conveying it? Did they fuck up? Like, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it, but I have not stopped thinking about it. It's so over the past, I've now seen enough Korean cinema to realize what Koreans love. And what Koreans love.
Oh boy, yeah, this is the territory we should walk into right now.
What Koreans fucking love is beautiful cinematography, hella dark storylines, but that start out as fucking comedies.
I feel like you just described. I love all those things.
I mean, I do too. Every movie I'm thinking of, I like.
Yeah.
Like Parasite, Mother. I mean,
Sure.
those are both by the same guy, but like, this movie's not done by Bong Joon-ho, and it's the same thing. It's like really, the trailer's so dark and heavy, and then it started. I'm like, oh, it's one of these, and it's so quirky and bonkers, and then it just gets really heavy. Basically, there's this. You follow a police officer, and there's all these murders happening in this small village area, and all the murderers are like deranged and have murdered their families, and they're like growing shit on them. And what I really like about it is just that, I mean, obviously, once again, cinematography is beautiful, editing's great, the storytelling's, the acting's really fun. There's a lot of misdirects in this where I thought I knew what was going on for sure, and I was like, that's stupid, like if that's what it is. And then it like changes, and then it's like, here's this, and none of it feels cheap. None of it feels like, a lot of times misdirects I feel like feel really cheap, and The Wailing is really good at making meaningful misdirects that had me guessing, and at the end just being devastated, and it was great. Really good time. Highly recommended. It's on Amazon, so
Cool.
check it out.
Yeah, I want to check that out.
I started The Harder They Fall on Netflix.
Okay.
Anyone watched it yet?
No. That's the Western, right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gotten, I'm like a fourth of the way through with it, and I just have not, it's not been able to hold my attention. And I think the problem I have with it is it's trying to pay homage to two different directors, one of who I love dearly and the other who I despise immensely, and that being Quentin Tarantino and Baz Luhrmann. And
Oof.
yeah, and they don't quite get the Tarantino level. Well, I don't think they do that super well. And then they do the Baz Luhrmann a little too well, particularly in just like the set design. I don't like how this movie looks.
Do you mean like, because when I think of Baz Luhrmann set design, I think of like, oh, this is this is like a stage. You know what I mean? Like I think of like a lot of like stagey visuals and like stylized
kind
stuff.
of in the sense that everything looks fake and too clean.
Interesting.
For like a gritty Western.
Sure.
And it's just super colorful, and I mean, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's like it feels plasticky and gross to me, and I really don't like that. The acting's fun, and I like, and like the scripts, like the dialogue's decent and good, and from what I've seen so far, I need to finish it, but I mean, it's an all African American. Well, actually, no, not. It's an all African heritage cast. I don't know what you
Sure.
how you classify that because Idris Elba's in it. But it's a Western done in like that style I just said, and like some things work, some things don't for me so far. But if that sounds interesting to you, it is a very unique thing, I think, and that's always good in my book, whether it hits or not. I think originality and something new and fresh is good. I also watched the first episode of the League of Legends animation that they've now done, which is a TV show they're making called Arcane. I don't play.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what league you in, bro?
I have never played League. I have not touched League. So I don't know if I'm I mean, for the people who also don't play League, here's the thing: the first episode's great. I think that it is a first episode of what I assume is going to be 10. And I don't know any of the characters, but I really love the production quality is astoundingly good. The animation is fantastic. The voice acting is fantastic. This, like, I don't know if you call that cinematography, but really well done, really well edited. I am very ecstatic about all that stuff, the technical aspect of it, and the writing is great so far. It feels like a book, and that's what I like about the pacing. Is this feels scenes have time to breathe, which usually they don't in animation. But they also don't overstay their welcome, like a lot of like animation where it's like held for too long. It's really stiff. Like everything's just great about it. The only thing I dislike about it so far is there's a lot of moments. Well, not a lot. There's a couple moments in just the first episode alone where they definitely got what I like to call the white people top 10 pop hits, and they really want to shoehorn them in. And so they have this long walking scene where they can play some hip track. The opening credits are Imagine Dragons is playing, and so it's like it doesn't fit because it's like a steampunk universe, and then you got these like really like modern sounding, greasy electric pop that is not fitting at all, and that grosses me out. But I mean, I can't speak for the whole series yet. The 3 episodes are out now on Netflix. First episode I really enjoyed. Surprisingly, but if you're a League fan, I don't know. I think the community's reception has been good on that from what I've seen, but I can't attest to that.
I feel like if you're exclusively a League fan too, like story might not be your favorite thing, right?
Well, that's the thing is like people like Overwatch fans and League fans, they are really into that lore.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
They love that lore and are shipping all sorts of people and get mad if you don't ship the same people.
God help them. God help them.
And yeah. I also watched Psycho Gorman for the first time.
Let's talk about Psycho Gorman.
How do you feel about Psycho Gorman?
I think it's an insane movie that is like super uneven, and I fucking love it.
I enjoyed my time with it. I would probably never watch it again. For me, after the first 15 minutes, the charm of the premise has worn off, and a lot of the jokes just didn't land for me after that. And I think humor, in my opinion, is the most subjective thing in all of art. Like, a good comedy to me is, did it make me laugh? And a comedy I consider a good movie is a bit different. I usually laugh less, but I appreciate everything more. So, like, this one didn't really do either for me.
Them puppets, though.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Them fucking puppets, though.
There's some really fun stuff in it. Like, and stuff. Something I really liked about it is those, like, a lot of the makeup and stuff that, like, look shitty, but at times I'm like, that was fucking awesome. Like, how did they do that? Like, basically the premise is it's supposed to be a what's the proper word? Not satire, but an homage to the 90s and early 2000s science fiction kid movies of like something coming from outer space, but then the kids find it and like have to befriend the type of thing. They're all against like Star Kid. If you ever saw Star Kid in the early 2000s, that's what it reminded me of the most.
Yeah.
But just stuff like that, like even the Power Rangers movie with Ooze, it kind of reminded me of a little bit.
And that's like if that was R-rated.
Like,
Super R-rated.
Yeah, it is definitely like an R-rated affair, and it's it used a lot of those tropes to be just pull fun hijinks. This alien creatures unearthed in these 2 siblings' yard, and they end up finding the device that controls its brain and it wants to murder everybody. And then they name him Psycho Gorman, and then they have to do all his bidding. So they The part where they like dress him up like a human is great.
Which he's just in the outfit of what's his face from Jurassic Park, just dressed as Sam Neill's character from Jurassic Park, which is amazing.
Yeah, there's some great stuff in there, but I think for the whole thing, I just wasn't laughing enough. I feel like to make it a rewatch for me.
It's definitely like a midnight movie too. You know what I mean? It's that genre of movie too. It's a B movie.
It feels like
it's
a B
in that
movie.
Family. I think the scene when the dad's taking a shit and just find me.
I think the dad was my favorite.
Oh my
part
God.
of that show.
There's some really great lines early on. Where like he just says these throwaway lines that no one ever like follows up on. You're like, what?
How about him not murdering everyone else? Yeah, and then she doesn't say it, and then no one like that's
Anyways.
great. Okay, and then I played 2 video games that were new. I'm going to start with the first one. Metroid Dread. I bought it. I caved. And it's good. It's a Metroid game. It's a Metroid game, as Metroid games in the 2D version have always been, with just us. Look,
Wait, is this a Metroidvania? Is that what you're talking about?
God damn it.
The snake is eating its tail, ladies and gentlemen.
Look, man, I mean, I've probably let this slip a little bit. I mean, let it slip. Been very blatant about this on the podcast, and I don't want my bias to like skew my view of these things. But Nintendo, dude, Nintendo. I get the Switch is cool. It can go anywhere. You can play it portable. It's severely underpowered, and it's doing a disservice to series like Metroid. Okay, that's the first gripe. Second gripe is the Switch, honestly, great way to play indie games. That's about it. There's like 4 good games on that system, and I mean good, they're good, but they're not masterpieces. And I think the Nintendo fanboys are so desperate for any masterpiece that as soon as a 7 out of 10 comes out, they're like, this is the best game ever made. Praise Jesus Christ and Reggie Fils-Aimé. Like, it fucking pisses me off. It's like, that's how they're doing about Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread is a fine game, and that's it. I think other people have said it better online about how it's just, this is, 2021, and this Metroid game is using tropes that were done back in the originals due to technical limitations, and now using that as a feature, and it doesn't feel good. There are things, but it's still a Metroid game and it's still fun. So, like, if you love 2D Metroid, absolutely get this game. You're gonna fucking love it. I paid
2D Metroid's a great character in some cartoon somewhere, right? It's gotta be
like Adventure Brothers.
Yeah, 2D Metroid.
But yeah, I wish I would have paid $30 instead of $60 for it.
Sure.
And I would have said it was worth it, but $60 not worth it for me. And the last thing I have is I finally started playing. Oh, I do want to mention about Metroid Dread. It just made me play the Demon's Souls remake again. I haven't finished Metroid Dread, and
ultimate Metroid.
I have now played through another playthrough of the Demon's Souls remake, and I did the hardest build that I've ever had to do in a Souls game, where it's a luck-based build, but to get the Blue Blood sword has stat requirements that are like, you have to get like 4 different stats up to 18, and it's fucking hard just to get to the sword with spreading your stats that thin, dude. But now that I have it, it's like a lightsaber, dude. I'm just carving people up. Anyway, Demon's Souls remake, get it. Outer Wilds is what I actually started playing.
I'm excited to hear you talk about this.
Have you started it? Have you played it?
So, okay, I don't play new games anymore. I just watch streamers play them, basically.
Oh, you watch it.
I have watched all of this game all of the way through. I watched it. It went when it first released, and then I watched the DLC as well. So,
I forgot they had DLC.
Yeah, I haven't played the DLC yet. I haven't, and it's like I'm waiting.
Dude, yeah, I haven't played a ton yet, but so here's another thing. I'm not a big fan of rogue likes. They're just not my thing. I appreciate them for what they are. I just have not been able to finish Hades just because it's just not my jam. But certain people come along and they do it in a way that I really like. And I mean, this is a weird one. I feel like it's one that gets overlooked because it was kind of like ahead of its time. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask might be my favorite roguelike because you are just doing these cycles, and the way you're building items it doesn't feel too. I'm not going back and doing the same fucking dungeon every time, right? It's like I can do a dungeon, feel good about completing it, and still rewind time, have those things, and then go on to the next thing. And that's how I kind of feel Outer Wilds is a bit. Like, I don't have to go back to the same planet I was on and retrace the exact same steps as long as I got through everything. Yeah. I can then go to the next planet. And man.
Here's the even fucking better thing about Outer Wilds. You're not going there to collect an item. You're going there to learn something that lives in your own fucking brain.
Yeah.
And then that is the thing that, like, I remember playing that game and I was like, holy shit. I could have flown. There's like a 1 in a million chance I could have just accidentally flown to the end of this game. And it would have ended. Like, that would have been
There's already been moments that I'm like, this is the end of the game. I could have flown here. I was like, no, fuck, but that thing stabbed me and now my suit's leaking. Shit. Yeah. Oh, man. So the very first time the cycle starts over, I had no fucking clue.
That's so incredible that you got to experience it that way, because I feel like most people by now kind of know what the game is and sort of how it works. But yeah, that's really cool.
Dude, yeah. So the first time it happened to me, I think I'd gone to the moon first, and then I left the moon because there's not a lot to do there, at least so far for me. And I started flying off, and I saw this planet that was like destroyed and around a singularity. I was like, oh, I want to go there because the note I just read said something about that, so I want to go here. I start flying towards. I'm like, how the fuck do you land on this thing? And I was like trying to figure it out. I'm like, oh, you probably land on the inside of the planet, which is not what you do. And I got sucked into the singularity.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I got shot out. Who fucking knows where? My ship is spinning. And it's like, your entire ship is fucking broke because I hit a million things on the way out of there. Oh, no, because I tried to fly back through and it wouldn't let me. And I damaged my ship doing that. And so now my ship is spinning. I get out. I'm trying to fly through space with the awkward controls, which is exactly how it should be. I love how awkward they are. And like, I'm trying to fly around and fix my ship. And then all of a sudden, this flash of white light. And I wake up again. I was like, what? What's happening? And I just learned today exactly what is happening, and on that stupid planet with the sand, and like you talk to that one character at the beginning, and you can just say like, "Hey, I learned something." He's super excited, and I kept going back to him saying I learned something, and as it progressed, he got more and more agitated to the point at the end where he's like, "We're all gonna die." He's like, "That's great, but we're all gonna die." So yeah, oh man, I can't believe I waited this long to play this game. It's great. I love it.
The DLC is fantastic too. Like, it just kind of distills everything that's great about the main game into a shorter experience. I mean, the DLC, it's still going to be like a 15 hour experience too.
That's amazing.
And it's great. It's so good.
Yeah. I definitely recommend after you finish, there's a couple of no-clip videos like about talks with the developers, and that game's fucking cool. Like, it's like one of those things you look at and you're like, why did you keep going on this? Like, it seems like you hit 2 or 3 times where like, this should have been so fucking broken that nothing would have worked. But man, yeah, it's just interesting how all that shit works. Like, it's one of those video games where I look at it and I'm like, this like really is a triumph of technology. Like,
yeah. It's just timers like millions deep, basically, like, that trigger everything else. Yeah,
we just created a 27-minute simulation of a solar system, and all the planets are unique. Like, oh man, it's fucking cool.
It's a bizarre experience. I'm excited to see where it goes because I really am not very far into it. And if anyone listens to this, and you're like me, get through the first just get to space. Just get to space, because honestly, when I started up, I was like, yeah, what's all the fuss about this bullshit? Like, I don't get it. And then I got to space, I was like, I get it. I get it now. And man, oh yeah, there's one. Fuck. I don't want to talk about it too much, but like, there's a planet I got on, and I didn't quite figure out all the mechanics yet, because it doesn't tell you everything, and that's the fun part about it, is like, you got to find things out yourself, and it's not too hard to find those out. I knew I had an oxygen limit on my suit, and I was about to go out. I was like, oh, I want to check the journal thing because I forgot to check the journal thing. I put my suit back
Oh no!
because I thought I had to conserve the. I checked the map, forgot I didn't have my suit on. Walk outside, I'm like, why is my character making these weird fucking sounds? Dead. And that was like at the very beginning of my cycle. I had the first planet I landed on after it, and I was not happy with myself.
That's amazing.
But that's all I got.
Game's great. Justin, what'd you have for recommendations?
This one is a hard thing to recommend because I don't know if you can actually watch it anymore. It may not be available, at least legally. You might have to pirate this if you want to watch it.
favorites.
So I've talked I've talked about how I'm a pretty big fan of Rhett and Link's YouTube channel. I watch basically everything that they put out. They did an adults only show a couple weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, that was just like you bought a ticket and it was on some streaming service that wasn't YouTube. And it was like an uncensored version of their Good Mythical Morning bit. Like it was that show. It was just like adult themed and uncensored, and they were doing shots in the pre-show, and just like it was wild and weird to see these YouTube celebrities that like I've been watching for 7 years now, I guess, in like in an environment where like I would be comfortable in this environment, but it's awkward to see people that you don't ever see in that environment there. But it was a blast. It was a good time. If it's still available, or if you have an opportunity to watch the show, it's a good time. It was definitely worth. I think the ticket was like $20, and there was like 2.5 hours of content. Like they did a 2.5. It was a live show, 2.5 hour live show for $20. So like that's a fucking steal. So yeah, it was fantastic. It was a just total blast. Gwen and I watched it together. Super awkward at moments, but like in just the best way. So if you ever have a chance to watch that, go for it. Or if you like Rhett and Link's stuff, then that would be something that you'd want to watch, unless you don't, of course. So yeah, I was trying to think what else I could recommend. I feel like a lot of the stuff that I have either done recently or like either played or watched, we've talked about on the podcast already. Because I ended up watching a couple documentaries on Netflix that we've talked about before, like the Malice in the Palace documentary. I watched that one, which was, I'm glad I watched it. I don't really have much to add to the conversation we had about that previously. Just if you get a chance, check that out. If you're a basketball fan, you should watch it. It's good to like, because I kind of knew like how the modern version of the NBA kind of like can be traced back to that moment in a lot of ways, with just the way that like fouls are called and like the enforcement of technicals and everything, and just like the culture of the league as well. So yeah, it's just kind of wild to see the beginning of a lot of that, and to look at the league today and see how it's changed since then. So that was a good time. And then you mentioned Hades. I finally actually finished the main story of Hades recently. That game sucked me in hard for a couple weeks. I played a lot of it. At one point, I was considering whether or not I was going to continue to the end of the story, because like I was just getting really sick and tired of the random bullshit aspect to it. But like the story, the dialogue in that game is so good that I just could not stop. Like I had to just keep going. I don't know how many lines of dialogue are written for that game, but it's insane.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
They were. I remember reading an interview. So the guy who wrote that game, his name's Greg Kasavin. He used to be a Game Informer. He used to write for Game Informer, and then he started working on the Command and Conquer. But anyways, he writes like basically Supermassive. They basically just have guys that do one job at the studio, and it's a small team, you know. But yeah, so he's their writer, and I think for their last game, Pyre, he was like that was the biggest game they'd written, because there's a lot of like character specific like choice dialogue, and your relationships with them change. So there's like all this dialogue, and he was saying that was like somewhere around like 500 to 600 pages of dialogue, and for Hades they were somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 1300
Jeez.
pages of
Holy
just
cow.
lines of dialogue.
I mean, it's a pretty indie game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
I
I
they're
feel like
an indie
it's
studio.
like it's the version of an indie game though that has like a backing of a pretty big publisher, though, right? Because I mean, it's
they publish everything, but they've had they're the Bastion, Transistor.
this is the AAA indie studio.
Yeah.
But it's like that's a lot of it's fully voiced, so it's like that's
all of the voice actors are employees at, so that's why they have the leeway to do something like that, because
I'm like, that's
they're
a
employed
lot
to do that job,
for voice actors.
Yeah, so you don't have to get Giancarlo Esposito back in the studio to be like, now say it like you're mad because they killed your dog before they came in here.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that with like DLCs where they have to have voiced. I mean, I've seen some like in Mass Effect. I don't think they could get Seth Green for some of them because the ship comes in, he's talking to Joker. There's there's no actual back and forth. So I'm like, but then there's other actors that do show up, and I'm like, I wonder how that works. Do you arrange that beforehand? I
don't know. I'm sure it's different for every There's so many tiers of voice actors at this point too, of like who you're getting in a movie,
or you just like completely replace your voice actor, like fucking Bungie did with Destiny. Peter Dinklage was the voice of. It was Dinklebot. He was your companion. And then
this is his official name. Yeah, they had some problems writing early on. It was weird.
That's not in the game anymore, which is just fucking wild. And speaking of which, like Blizzard's doing that with Cassidy now too. So like,
are they rightfully his voice actor?
So okay, I started playing. I was going to talk about this as a sort of recommendation because I actually started playing Overwatch again this past week. I finished up they finished season 30 and I went in
they've been on the air longer than The Simpsons.
I have not touched Overwatch in probably like 2 years at this point. I uninstalled it after like rage quitting one night. I did the Alt F4 uninstall thing that everybody talks about because I was so pissed off. Installed it again, started playing, did my placement matches, placed exactly the same place that I was at when I finished playing, which is absolutely hilarious after a 2-year hiatus. But yeah, the McCree voice lines, like he just doesn't say anything anymore. Like, I mean, they're in there kind of, but like
I'm so sorry.
The character interactions that you have occasionally with like different characters talking to each other, I don't think I've heard any of that anymore.
Yeah, well,
so it just
they
feels
can't
like
say his name. Some of them do to get his attention, so it's like you have to re-record a ton of shit.
Yeah, so I'm assuming because my initial thought was that they were going to be re-recording voice lines. They were going to have Matt. What's his face? Matt Mercer. Yeah, but he's probably too busy doing season 3 of Critical Role now too. So
and what they just finished their animated Netflix show. Yeah.
So who knows what's going on? I don't know. It's wild. So recommendation: Overwatch is a good time if you don't care about anything. If you go into it and you just have go in. I stopped playing again this week after I was like finding myself yelling at 1:30 in the morning. Should have been in bed 3 hours ago. Like, why isn't my fucking Lucio healing me right now? And then I was like, oh yeah, this is how this game works. I need to just like get out of competitive and play quick play for a while and not care what's happening.
I think
because then it's a good time.
If I ever go back, that's all I'm gonna do is just quick play.
Yeah,
dude, Overwatch killed any desire I ever had to pick up any online game. Like, I just don't care for it. Yeah,
I agree. I also kind of went back to Destiny a little bit recently too. Like I was going to start playing since it's like I wanted to play the Halloween event that they had released, and then like their last season before the Witch Queen Witch Queen releases in like January, I think. Since the last season before the next big release of Destiny, I was like, yeah, I'll jump back in and see what's going on, catch up on the story and stuff. And like, it's just, I don't know if I can. I put like 400 hours into it last year, and I don't know if I'm ready to go back to it yet, because every time I start getting back into that game, I'm just reading more and more stuff about what the decisions that Bungie is doing to like drive player engagement. And like, for me, that has the opposite effect. Like, yeah, I want to keep playing because of like fear of missing out and all of the psychological stuff, but like, I just don't know if I can keep doing it at this point. So yeah, we'll see what happens when Witch Queen drops, because I think my raid team wants me to do day one raid again with the new one, but I don't know. We'll see. I got other shit going on in my life now too, so I don't know. I don't even know if that was recommendations or not, but yeah, that's my
important.
life right now. I don't have time to do new things. I did my triathlon last month. I would recommend that. But that took up so much time, and I got sick for like the last 2 weeks before the race, which fucking sucked.
Sucks. Were you? How was your? Have you done this same triathlon before?
This is the first time I had done this race
okay.
specifically. Yeah, I had done one in Southern Utah before. It was a different event, but this one was the Southern Utah Triathlon, and it takes place at Quail Creek Reservoir, which is by Hurricane.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you do the swim in the reservoir, and I think the water temperature at the time was like low 60s, high 50s, maybe. It was cold. I couldn't feel my hands, my feet, or my face when I got out.
Jeez.
And then the bike, I didn't know anything about the course going into this, but the bike ride was basically all uphill one direction. It was about like I think it was, let's see, it would have been like a
were up to school.
12, yeah. It was about like a 12-mile ride, I think, one direction where it's basically all uphill, and then you bike back. And I was doing the Olympic distance, so like I had to do that twice. So it was out and back on the bike. By the time I was done with that, like I couldn't feel my feet because my bike pedals I got new pedals and new shoes and everything. Yeah, and then the run, turns out the run had like 600 feet of gain in that too, which fucking sucked. And I was like, I just crashed hard when I got to the run. So
You said this was a recommendation.
I would I'm going to be, so yeah, I recommend it because like if you want to survive, you've got to be working out, and it's like a good reason, a good excuse to get in shape. So I find it a lot of fun too. So yeah.
Cool.
I'm going to planning on doing a half Ironman next year in September, which is going to be a lot of training, but looking forward to it.
Cool. That's awesome. Great. I have some recommendations for this shit. I'll start with some video games. First of all,
oh, sorry, I do have a recommendation. I did not play
you
it.
listen to Justin.
The new Guardians of the Galaxy game is actually really cool. The
I've
combat
heard this
sucks,
thing.
but the game is actually pretty fantastic. I haven't played it. I watched somebody play it, but it's a good time, and it's a good game for that because like it's a game where the dialogue and the characters and everything are like that's why you want to play this game. It's very well written. It's funny. Yeah. Don't play it for the combat because it sucks, but it's basically the same combat style as like the Avengers game that they keep trying to make a thing, but
I
it's
heard
dead.
that people like the combat in this game.
I thought it was
My
impression was it was the same thing as Avengers, and it wasn't good.
Because
but-
Avengers, you control like a single character. Whereas this, you're controlling what I've seen. I haven't played it, but like you control your whole party, and you're actually really weak because it encourages you to like control.
Yeah,
and,
I think.
So is it like Final Fantasy
Yeah,
VII?
yeah. Kind of.
I
Final
don't
Fantasy.
think you switch. I don't think you can like switch control of who you're.
No, you can't.
But you can like
it's
direct,
commands,
you issue commands for your party members, and there's this mechanic called there's a huddle up mechanic, which is absolutely hilarious because you just be in this middle of a massive fight, and then you can huddle up, and you see Drax and Groot and Rocket and everybody, Gamora come in, and like they're just all it's just a huddle up in the middle of this combat, and you're like, and you get to decide like kind of what you want to focus on, and it like inspires your team or whatever, and gives buffs to everybody. But yeah, it's really cool.
Interesting.
I would recommend it. It was the kind of game where I saw it, I was like, this looks like shit, but
Yeah.
it's actually fantastic.
I remember seeing the trailer and being like, ooh,
Yeah.
this looks like the B version of the Avengers game that made me go,
Yeah.
oh no.
Yeah, it's not. It's the opposite of it. It's
Cool.
kind of what I feel like the Avengers was originally going to be until they decided to go like the live service way with that. And this game, it feels like this is what Avengers should have been to begin with. It was just like a single player, narrative driven experience. So
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's
Now
good.
I'm done.
So I have a girlfriend who is getting into video games and has heard the term Skyrim a lot over the last little while.
I wish Gwen was here for this.
So yesterday, she was like, what is Skyrim? And I was like, well, here you go. I'll just boot it up for you. I don't think this is going to be your type of thing. So We booted up. We went through character creation, which of course it took forever. And then she started playing, and I had to come down here. So I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna leave you here. You can." And she was like, "Well, that's good. I've got to go leave to do laundry soon, anyways." So I left at like 3:30. And I texted her about 8 just to see how her day was going, and she had just left my apartment after playing Skyrim for about 6 hours. And so now I'm like, maybe I'm going to finally finish Skyrim for the first time. Because I think I'm going to like finally load up the Skyrim I spent 12 hours modding 4 months ago and maybe play it. Anyways. That's just Skyrim. Everyone knows about that.
I can't believe I played that game on the PS3 when it initially came out.
That is
I can't believe there's releasing a new one next month.
That's true,
No,
yeah.
this week.
Is it this
in
week?
like 4 days.
Oh my god.
I'm just thinking of all the time I spent looking at loading screens and that game came out.
Yeah. Oh
At
man.
least you could turn the character model, you know.
Yeah. I've been playing a couple other games. Far Cry 6 I just picked up, just started playing.
I saw you playing that. How is that?
You know what? People are going to shit on Far Cry. And that's totally fine with me. Far Cry feels like coming home after a long trip. And for someone to just be like, do you want something that doesn't matter at all? And do you want to be God? And the answer for me for both those questions is yes. And so I fucking love Far Cry. Now, I know that there are some bugs. Like I said, it's been out for a month, and I know there are some bugs. I haven't run it. Well, I've run into the bugs that I like about Far Cry. It's like there's some minor differences. You're basically like, there's kind of like tiered loot in this one as opposed to like skill trees. So there's no skill trees in this game, which is a little weird for Far Cry. But that does just mean like, hey, you know all those quality of life things that are on the skill tree that were like automatically loot this guy when you blow his head off?
Damn it.
It just happens. And that's really great. Also, the player character in this is named Danny Rojas, which is a prominent character in Ted Lasso, which makes me laugh really hard anytime anyone says Danny Rojas. So that's
Danny
really
Rojas
fun.
a character in something else too.
Probably.
Like
it
an
might
80s
just
movie?
be the John Smith of I don't know. I only know 2, so but they're both great. So yeah, that's been really good. I mean, I have yet to even do the best part of Far Cry, which is like jumping in with one other person and just becoming a Valkyries of Death. So I'm very excited for that.
I mean, as based on how the last few have gone, I'm assuming the story is just shit.
I mean, it's not
I was
great.
hoping that someday because honestly, Far Cry 3, it wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed what they were trying to do with the story there, and I was like, oh. This is them just figuring it out. Yeah. They're gonna get it in 4, and then they fucking didn't.
Well, and
so I'm always hoping they come back around.
At least they didn't promise much along those lines with this game. At least I feel like the big thing was like, hey, we got that guy from Breaking Bad, and they were like, and it's about Cuba. Shh, it's not political at all. These fucking guys. But yeah, it's. I mean. Yeah, I think at this point I'm definitely not there for this story. I do miss that element of Far Cry 3 where I was like, there was this promise of like, you know that. But I will say the season pass for this game has 3 expansions. Well, like they're also re-releasing Blood Dragon they're like putting it on PS4 and PS5 or whatever. Which Blood Dragon, just stupid. But the DLCs for this. You play as the villains from 3, 4, and 5. So the first one is apparently going to be a roguelike type of thing where you were playing Voss, yeah. So I don't know. I don't think they've ever really stuck the landing on any DLC they've released for Far Cry, but I don't know. Might be fun. Well, I'll let you know when I see it. The other game that I tore through this week is called Inscription. And Inscription is a game by Daniel Mullins, who also made Pony Island and The Hex. I don't know if you guys played either of those.
Is this a deck building game?
Yes.
That
sort of.
Devolver
Yes, I think
they
so.
show this off at their showcase.
Oh yeah, I
last year,
remember you
right?
talking about this when
I had forgotten about this. So
this just
yeah.
came out.
Okay, I didn't know it was
Check it
just
out.
released. I wanted to check this out when it released. So cool.
It's amazing because here's the thing: it's a deck builder, but like that's kind of like I mean, it's the primary thing you're doing, but it's also like the third most interesting thing that's happening in the game. But like I caught myself the other day because it's basically like you're at this table with someone shrouded in darkness and you're playing this deck building game, and then when you lose, you die, and it starts like it doesn't start over like anyways. There's this a little bit of progression that happens, but the other part of this is like when you're not playing the card game, when you're in like this overworld area, you can just stand up from this table and wander around this creepy room, and there's all these little weird puzzles and like stuff to open up, and that's the stuff that's like really insane. Like the deck building part of the game is really fucking rad and really deep. And like I caught myself the other day being like, it's been like 10 rounds. I've played through this like 10 times. And I haven't even looked around this room. I should do that. And then I did, and there was like 4 or 5 things that was like, you should pick this up. You should pick this up. And so I did, and like progressed like this weird like higher level story that's going on. But man, it's fucking cool. And it does the same thing that like Daniel Mullins does in Pony Island and the Hex, where it's like part of the game's mechanics are like ripping away part of the game's mechanics to reveal other things and then taping those onto the back end to make it do something stupid. Like it's really cool. It's really wild. You should play Inscription. Probably like one of the most interesting games I played this year easily. And then I have 3 movies that I saw over the last little while.
I forgot to talk about that.
I'll start with this one. We went and saw The French Dispatch.
Yes, that's what I want to know. Is it good?
It's fucking amazing.
Oh, good.
I went in with kind of like middling expectations just because I wasn't sure how much I was going to love the format of just like 3 vignettes. Holy shit. They're so good. And honestly, I want to go back and see it again because there's so much packed into that movie that, like, I don't know. There's just awesome stuff. And it's Wes Anderson doing the stuff he does best and then pushing that to the nth degree. Like, there are some shots in this movie that are just like, where it's basically like he's taken a snapshot of the insane action that he creates and just had the actors create a tableau and stand still while he pans across the whole thing. And it's just beautiful. It's just awesome. And it's super funny. And like, I think I've been watching a lot of his older stuff recently, and it's really amazing. I feel like the last, like, I feel like Grand Budapest, and Fantastic Mr. Fox and Moonrise Kingdom to some extent, he finally like kind of nailed like, I don't know if he just got comfortable with real genuine human emotion, which I guess Darjeeling Limited is essentially about 3 people coming to terms with being comfortable with being emotional. But like the emotional payoffs in French Dispatch are just so good, and by the end of the 3rd vignette, like there's just like these little moments that just had me like tearing up, and it's really great. I think it's a fantastic movie. Once it ended, I immediately wanted to go see it again. It's really good. I also went and saw Last Night in Soho.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
It was on my list.
The new Edgar Wright movie. Have you seen it?
No.
Neither of you seen it?
No.
Okay. It's good. I've been trying to figure out like how to talk about it. It's like got the Edgar Wright style that you crave. And it's a really good thriller, almost to a fault, where it's like, you know how a lot of these thrillers falter a little bit in the 3rd act? Maybe we stuck to that a little too well. You know, there's like stuff that like it still works. I think it's still like a step better than most of those thrillers in the 3rd act. Whereas like the first 2 acts are like way better. So yeah, it's the performances are great. The style is fucking rad. The music, very good. But yeah, and then the last thing I saw was Medea Goes Boo 2. No, I saw Dune. which
Medea goes to Arrakis.
oh, I just imagine the Atreides army landing on Arrakis and just Medea walking out in U.S. Army fatigues, and she pulls out her ticket and it just says Iraq is. It's like no. Anyways,
Oh, Tyler Perry's Dune. Amazing.
so have you watched Dune?
Yes, I have watched
Have you
it.
seen Dune?
Not yet.
Okay.
Have you read Dune?
I have read it. Yes.
Okay.
And you have read Dune.
Yeah.
I have not read Dune.
Okay.
So
Good.
honestly, at this point, I'm like, well, I'd like to see the rest. Because to me, the pacing of it is not good, but I don't blame Denis for that.
Yeah.
Honestly, all the faults I have with the movie, I don't blame Denis for. He, I think, did his job really well. It's probably my least favorite so far of all of his movies, but like,
I will say the pacing problems that you're talking about are just the fact that this is part of a book, and a huge chunk of that book actually is what you saw. So there's a lot of, like that, there's a lot of that expository shit, and in the book there's a lot more of the political shit, which, like, I'm pretty cool with them just being like, yeah, shit's fucked, man. These guys want these people dead. Or spies, blah, 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 blah.
I mean, like, immediately I was like, wow, this is a huge info dump. But at the same time, I was like, by the end, I was like, I can see why you needed to do that. Just because, I don't know, translating a book like Dune is so, just from what I know and how beloved it is like, whoever has that job has a rough time, especially considering what was made before.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's like a cursed property at this
Yeah.
point. Like, yeah,
so it's like you have to toe that line of, I gotta please the book fans, but I gotta make a good movie. And of everyone who's tried that, I thought he did an actually really admirable job. I enjoyed it. It's just, it feels incomplete and it feels paced really fucking weird because the climactic moment of the film doesn't feel like a climactic moment of the film.
Yeah.
The call to action, I felt like, came like way fucking late. Yeah. And like, yeah, this feels like half a story that I need the rest of.
Well, and now you see the problem that we ran into with David Lynch's Dune, which he made a 4.5-hour movie, which is like, that's probably what you should do for Dune.
Well, yeah,
and now they're doing it, but it's just.
I mean, I probably said this before, but I was like, I feel like all book adaptations should just be made into a 10-episode, hour-long episode HBO type thing, like, depending on the budget you need, right?
Yeah.
And I think Dune could definitely benefit from that, because another big gripe I have with it, which they just didn't have time for, was the characters I just don't really care about, because we didn't get a chance to really dive into a lot of the characters. And like,
Well, I mean, that's kind of how the book is too.
Yeah.
So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Because like, that's something that the characters are and world are interesting enough. I want to know more. It's not like some movies where I'm like, I don't even fucking care. Don't even tell me.
I think Dune's characters are less human and more archetypal than anything. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, especially Paul Atreides is nothing. Paul Atreides is a vanilla ice cream cone. Like, it's whatever you ate before, you're gonna get a hint of that, and like so yeah, I think it is like Dune is both like this because of who is directing it and who is in it. It's become this extremely hip property. But then when you get into it, you're like, this is actually a very old piece of sci-fi. And like, it still wears a lot of that age in this adaptation, which I think is both to its benefit and its detriment. Like, this does feel close to a Dune adaptation that could have been released in the 70s or early 80s or whatever. But yeah, I totally get that. Like, I think some of my favorite stuff about the movie. Did you see it in a theater or did you watch it?
No,
on
I was
HBO?
a scrub and watched it on my home because I haven't been able to get out.
Yeah,
to go
no,
see stuff.
and I totally get that, and I think that's how tons of people are going to experience.
But
this.
I want to see, because I mean,
yeah,
visually it's very stunning, and man, I like some of the, like, there's a particular shot, and this is actually my favorite aspect of the story so far, is like the clan of witches. Like, that's the most interesting part to me. And there's a shot where they're talking in the rain when the like head witch is leaving, and then her ship leaving, and I mean, Hans Zimmer gets so many people just eating his ass out, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Like, he does such a good job with this movie, and it's different from his other stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer brings it in this movie, and it fits so good.
I honestly somehow had missed that it was Hans Zimmer doing the soundtrack, and then like at the end, I was like, "Oh my god, holy shit!" But yeah, that moment, like, that was the moment I was going to bring up about seeing it in the theater. I'm going to be that asshole who's like, I'm just going to say, if you can, if you're going to see a movie in theaters, this like, listen. Pirate French Dispatch. Fuck it. Pirate Last Night in Soho. Go fucking see Dune in the theater. Like, because that moment where, like, that ship lights up and they're leaving, and that just, like, horrifying chorus of voices, like, swells in the music, it is, like, chilling. Like, but yeah, I think this movie is filled with, like, visuals that are just, like, really fucking rad. I think of the other shot of the, there's a moment when they're hiding out and there's just the silence. It's like the Harkonnen soldiers are like dropping down into this area, and it's like this really ethereal feeling. Like, oh, I don't know, it's just really cool. I also think the production design, like, one of the things I love about Denis Villeneuve's like last few movies, obviously like Blade Runner and Arrival, is like this really like brutalist sense of the future, and like I don't know, it all just feels so like huge and like ageless, and I don't know, it's just so good.
It does remind me, I mean, it's a cliche comparison, but like how George Lucas did Star Wars as the used future,
Yeah.
and how that was such a unique concept at the time. Very different tone with
Sure.
Denis stuff, but that same idea in the art direction, I love that shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's that type of thing that Star Wars does, but taken to a level of like the old school sci-fi, like you talked about, like the more like thought-provoking sci-fi that's less adventure-y and more I don't know what the word is. I mean, nihilistic is a little bit. Man, I love that shit. The art in this movie is so fucking good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I once again with the characters, like I would have loved to see more House Harkonnen. Like,
Yeah.
I would have loved that. They're gonna run into a villain problem that like every superhero movie runs into. He looks cool as shit.
Yeah.
Menacing as hell.
One of my favorite shots is the one where it's over Oscar Isaac's shoulder and he's in focus, and you just see the blurry, like, you see Harkonnen at the end of the table and you just see him blurrily like raised into the air. It's
Yeah.
just this tower of black. Like, it's really cool.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's
yeah.
really good.
But I will say, I mean, they're already working with a weird villain problem with Baron Harkonnen because of how he's characterized. Especially in the books in the David Lynch movie, where it's like, this guy's bad. You know why?
Because he's gay.
He's gay.
Yeah.
And do you know what else he likes? Little boys. And luckily they've stepped away from that part. I mean, yeah, they've stepped away from that. But they also stepped away from outright saying you're going to drink your piss in this suit, which frustrated me because
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, it recycles the water you lose. You know, like sweat and tears. And we didn't get one guy that was just like, what about my piss? Like, shut up. They didn't even do that. It was just like, everyone was like, oh yeah, that's all the water that comes out of my body. Come on. Denis, I want release the piss cut. I want the piss cut of Dune.
I mean, there's supposed to be a shit ton of more footage, right? And
I'd imagine, yeah.
I've been in the discussions online, not participating because I don't do that shit, but I listen to a lot of people, and they're like, the rumors going around is that there's a whole ton of footage, and there's possibility of a cut that's like 4 fucking hours long.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I will take that. Like, if once you give me the second half, I will watch 8 hours. I'll spread it out, but I'll watch it. Like, I don't know. Denis is just swell. Like, I did say that it's like not as favorite as the last 2 movies he's done, but I still had a good time, and it's still.
We've talked about both those movies on this podcast, and we're very, very glowing about those. So yeah. But yeah, and luckily they did greenlight part 2 finally, so they're gonna make it, which is good.
I'm surprised they like put that much into it and like advertised it as having a part 2 and not greenlit it from the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's weird.
So Katie and I are actually watching the extended editions of Lord of the Rings this month and doing it just hour by hour, pretty much. And it just baffles me still that like they greenlit that whole thing and shot it in 2 years, and like that's unheard of right now. Like that's nuts.
It's crazy.
I'm surprised, but I'm a little surprised they didn't do that with Dune with like who they already like the cast and the director and like how they were marketing it is just weird to me that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, and it was just marketed that way so that everybody would want to go see it, so that they could make more money.
Josh Brolin's like, we're filming in 3 months.
Yeah. Because everybody's like, I gotta go see it so that we can watch part 2.
Yeah. Could be. It's crafty. These studios are crafty. We shouldn't trust them, but we should give them our money.
What?
Yeah. Oh, the other thing, Dungeons and Daddies ended their first arc ended since we last talked, and Jesus Christ, man, fucking.
I think Gwen has listened to that all the way through now about 3 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm on my second listen through again, and
I still haven't finished episode 2.
I'm like episode 7 still. I just haven't gone back to it yet.
So good. So good. But yeah, they just announced they are doing like a second season of Dungeons and Daddies with new characters that are related to their characters that they're playing now. But they're doing a brief like mini series called Fetch Quest where they're all just animals. And I'm really fucking excited to listen to that.
Did it end at a satisfying like story point?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's really cool. So
it's not the No Country for Old Men
D&D
podcast.
No, it's got an ending, and I will say, as you're listening through, definitely listen to the Call of Cthulhu mini arc that they did, where they play their characters' grandparents, because that comes back into the story in interesting ways. I think it's in the feed. Like there will be a point
they'll
where
say something about it.
I think that the first episode is just put into the normal feed. But yeah. Anyways, it's but yeah, I think the ending is great, and they basically do they do a post-credit scene, kind of at the end of where they've wrapped up to kind of set up what's to come. And it's really great. I'm on the Patreon, and so I also listen to the podcast where they talk about their podcast every episode called Talking Dad, and just that's really cool to listen to as well, just to hear like the creative process for a lot of those moments, because there's one episode in particular towards the end where it's kind of, I mean, you're kind of with these characters. They all have this big confrontation they have to do before they get to the end. And one of those episodes is like, honestly, one of the most just like heart-wrenching and like power. Like it's one of those things where like, man, these guys are fucking improvising through D&D. And like, this is just tearing me apart. Like just these little moments where a character will say 2 words and I'm like, oh, like it's just everything in me is dying. Like it's really cool. And then the next episode they're making a goblin on these nuts joke. Like it's just ridiculous. It's just really great. It's a great show. I've talked about it way too much already, but yeah, that's all we've got. What are we gonna watch next? Something else going, brothers. I guess
got one more, right?
Yeah.
One more that we're gonna do.
I think we actually have 2. I think we've only watched
we
Fargo.
watched 3.
What did we watch before Fargo? Because I'm pretty sure Fargo was our first.
Fargo,
Big
Big
Lebowski.
Lebowski.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And,
yes.
yeah. I mean, I was thinking The Serious Man, but
I'm down.
I don't. There's a bunch I haven't seen, so I don't know if I want to pick those ones or not.
Have you seen A Serious Man? Mm-mm. I like popping people's.
I like talking about the Jews, so
yeah, we can talk about a lot of
in a fascinating
light.
not a way that Disney liked talking about the Jews.
Yeah, let's say tentatively A Serious Man for our next episode. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then we'll figure out if we want to maybe we'll keep watching Coen Brothers movies. Maybe we'll watch something else. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a Home Alone marathon. I don't know. But yeah, that's
Time of year almost.
That's that time of year. Yeah, we're getting there.
Watching all the Home Alones. Oh. Once we hit 3, it's gonna be hard.
Well, we'll be back next time with another Coen Brothers movie, most likely a Serious Man. You've been here with me, Tyler Harris, and
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
adios, muchachos.